Hey, welcome to Divinely Uninspired episode 12. We are recording this early for your benefit because we're not going to be here the week between Christmas and New Year because we're lazy. And so we decided we were going to record a special episode just for all you listeners. I'm here with Jeremy, as always.
How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I am tired today. We moved into our new house yesterday, so I'm a little I don't know what the term is, but I'm tired. So, and also with April, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, but you're in trouble. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit.
I'm always in trouble.
And then Jami, Jeremy's wife, or rather, Jeremy is Jamie's husband, depending on which way we want to look at it. Jami is with us today. Welcome, Jami. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
She's the first wife of, what do we call it?
The first lady.
First lady of Journey.
Stuff,
Yeah. Leah used to get asked by people when they found out that she was married to a youth minister and then a worship minister, which is me. Not that she had other husbands who were in ministry, but that if she was the second lady, because I wasn't. And she, if you know anything about my wife, she does not like being the second at anything. She likes to be first. So anyway, we got a great show for you today. Lots to talk about. But first things first, here's a song. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to Divinely Uninspired, podcast by Journey Church Shepherdsville, hosted by Jami Willis and me, Rusty Wilson. You can find us online at journeyshepherdsville.com. For questions or comments, email podcast@journeyshepherdsville.com. Maybe we'll feature your question or comment on a future episode. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. So as we're recording this, Christmas has not quite happened yet, but we're going to pretend that it did. Theater of the mind, if you will. And we're going to talk about our least favorite Christmas carols. I put in the notes. I did put your least favorite Christmas carol. So there are a lot of really bad ones. And I just kind of wanted to chat through what everybody's least favorite, and it doesn't have to be a carol, but it can just be a Christmas song. So April, what is your least favorite Christmas song?
I hate Feliz Navidad.
Oh,
really?
I don't know why, but yes.
Is there a reason you don't like that song?
I don't like the beats.
Is it because we're in America and you want people to speak American?
Absolutely not. I just hate the song.
it's so happy.
It is.
I don't like the beat at all. Sorry.
Okay, well,
No.
put a damper on my day.
I'm sorry.
What about you, Jami?
The Drummer Boy.
Oh, that's a good one.
I do not like that. It is too repetitive.
What about the one they do in The Office, though?
Yeah, that's good. Where they do the on. Well, you
With Angela?
Yeah, Angela and Dwight,
Yeah.
and then Angela and Andy.
Oh, I forgot that.
We
part.
actually just watched. We have for like a couple more weeks. We have Peacock, and so on Peacock they have the Office episodes where you can just watch all the holiday ones back to back to back. So we've been doing that where you can watch all seasons of the holiday ones for The Office. So.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Jeremy? What's your least favorite?
Jami knows my least favorite. What is my least favorite?
I know it. Mary, did you know?
Yes,
But
Mary,
you
did
sing
you
it the
know?
most probably of all the songs.
Yeah, it is my least favorite because it's not accurate. She did know.
She did.
An angel came and told her, so she did know.
Okay. Well, my least favorite is Christmas Shoes, because I don't even think
that was
yes.
terrible.
Yes.
It's not a Christmas song for one, and it's depressing as all get out, and I just hate that song.
I would agree. I take back my
That one's
answer.
really bad. I've gotten a rep here about not liking Christmas music. It's not that I don't like it. I just don't think we have to listen to it for a whole month. Do you know, like I think the 2 weeks before, the week before, play your little hearts out, and some of them are good. Like, I mean, some of them are classic songs. I mean, Joy to the World is one of my favorite songs ever. Silent Night, if it done correctly, is one of the best songs. But a lot of them just aren't that great, to be honest with you. And there's probably a reason we only sing them one time a year.
So what's everybody's favorite Christmas song? Non-Jesus-y. Let's talk non-Jesus-y Christmas song.
non-Jesus-y one.
Of course you don't.
Being serious, I really don't.
I think all the Christmas songs are kind of Jesus-y.
I don't know. White Christmas.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that's
Santa
Silver Bells.
Baby. I like Santa Baby.
That's your favorite?
What's the Mariah Carey song that everybody
All I
listens
Want
to?
for Christmas Is You?
Yeah.
I hate that.
Okay, you're right. There's a lot
There's
of
a
not
lot.
Jesus ones.
I'm gonna pull up Apple Music. How many Christmas songs?
Last Christmas by Wham. That's a good one.
Oh yeah.
But there are I would say there are probably more Christmas songs that aren't about Jesus than there are songs about Jesus. And that's saying something because Hillsong and Bethel and those places churn them out.
They're trying to catch up. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to catch up.
I guess. All right. Well, we don't have time to dabble on Christmas songs all day long. We got more important things to talk about. Like, for example, and I've gotten lots and lots of questions about this over the last few weeks because several episodes ago, we played a little game. Would April buy this? Mm-hmm. And the deal was that if April lost, she had to wear a shirt. April is known for wearing cheesy Jesus shirts. And the deal was that if she lost, Jeremy would get to pick out a shirt that she would have to wear on a Sunday morning. And I've not heard this from April specifically, but I've heard it through the grapevine that she is refusing to wear the shirt that was purchased and picked for her. And so, April, what's the deal here?
First of all, the game was rigged.
It was not
rigged.
Was so
I did not
rigged.
know any of those things until I literally walked in this room and saw those sheets.
The questions, like I would buy testaments. Really? Come on.
You might.
You surprise us.
Somebody's buying them. They were like number 3 bestseller on that website.
They
so
really
somebody's buying them.
No, I think the game was rigged.
It was not rigged.
And I haven't seen the shirt. So in all fairness.
That's the point. You don't get to see the shirt until you wear it.
It's not got any profanity on it.
No, there were several I
It's
sent
not.
Rusty that would have been really bad.
Yeah, Jeremy would have lost his job.
Yeah, but then I decided I've got one. I bought it. It's waiting for you to agree to wear it, and then you wear it, and it's going to be all over with.
All 15 of our faithful listeners have been asking me, when is April going to wear her shirt?
Not true. I think
it really is. I'm dead serious. People have been asking me like crazy.
And it's more than 15.
Yeah, it really is. We average like 500 people an episode, which is pretty good for
a new podcast.
Well, we can just say I did and they won't know because they can't see the podcast.
But most of them probably know whether you would or wouldn't wear them.
Well, because we would talk about it.
And here's the thing. The shirt that she was going to have to wear, if she'd wore it the week of Halloween, it wouldn't have been that weird. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it would have been like, oh, she's wearing a weird shirt because it's Halloween week.
Yeah, you could have said,
but now we're into
Bash.
the Christmas season. And so you're going to have to pick a week where it's going to feel completely out of character. And it's just.
I think you just need to show grace. And I think your wife would agree.
Listen, we go ahead, Jamie. What do you think?
I'd like to see you in the shirt.
Oh my gosh, Jamie, I thought we were better than that.
So here's the deal, podcast listeners. We want to hear from you, and we're about to release April's personal cell phone number on the podcast so that you can text her and tell her how much you want to see her in this shirt. You gotta wear the shirt, April. Listen, I'll wear a shirt. I'll make a deal with you. I'll wear a shirt that you pick out on the same Sunday because I wasn't in the game. That way, it wasn't rigged. That I will wear
and here's the thing:
shirt you
if
want me to
I
wear.
would have lost the game, which it could have happened, it came down to the final answer. It wasn't like a landslide. Like it came down to the final thing. So that's how you also know it wasn't rigged. It came down to the final thing. And 2 of the things I thought you would buy, you didn't actually end up saying you would buy. So there's no way that was rigged.
Wait a minute. You said you got to answer if you would buy it or not?
She got to answer. There was a list. There was several pictures of things.
Wait. There we got a bigger issue here. Do you not listen to the podcast, Jamie?
I might have missed that episode.
Oh, okay. All right.
I listen a lot.
She listens to the ones that she's on.
That makes sense.
I really do love the music. I don't always make it through the whole thing.
I understand.
They are kind of long. Jamie's like a 15-minute person. It's not under 15 minutes.
Not normally a podcaster.
Gotcha. Okay. We'll continue, Jeremy.
So anyway, there's no way it was rigged. She saw all the items. She told Rusty in secret whether she would or wouldn't buy them. Then they presented me all of the items and I had to guess whether she would or wouldn't buy them. And several of them I got wrong.
You did.
It came down to the final thing and then I won.
The 2 cheesy things.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, April. If I would have had to wear the stupid pumpkin spice
and
shirt,
Jesus Christ,
I would have wore it. I would have wore it on Sunday. Jamie, have I not wore ridiculous things on stage on Sunday because I had to for some whatever reason?
You have. April, I think you'd be cute in anything you put on.
You're so sweet, Jamie. But at the end of the day, Jeremy, I love Jesus, so I wouldn't have made you wear it.
I got to point something out.
You said you already had it.
I got to point something out. She said that she only didn't buy the 2 cheesy things in the list. Everything on the list was
everything
super
was
cheesy.
on there.
Was not.
Was so
No, it was
cheesy.
not. It was, what was the last one? Like a Jesus coin?
I don't know. It was like Hobby Lobby
Weird.
threw
It was
up.
a commemorative Jesus coin.
Okay, like seriously.
Somebody's buying that.
I'm not buying that.
Well, you're going to have to wear the shirt, April. We're just going to have to.
We'll just see what everybody says.
But, you be prepared for your phone to blow up.
Yeah.
Because
Whatever.
her number is, and I repeat,
No.
Yeah.
No, just give them an email. April at journeyshepardsville.com.
Yeah. Blow her email up.
April at journeyshepards. Hey, and you know, we'll make it interactive. If you have a shirt you'd like to see April wear, just email us.
I love it.
This is getting worse.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
Let's just move on,
The
Rusty.
shirt that I picked out wasn't even that bad.
Whatever.
I think this next topic you're probably more excited to talk about than what shirt you have to wear, and it's a sad story. So,
It is.
we love animals. I'm an animal lover, and I think everybody at this table has like a small zoo at their home. But there is some tomfoolery going on over in India between monkeys and puppies. So an article came out in IFL Science. And this is the headline. Bear with me. Monkeys massacre 200 puppies in revenge after dogs allegedly kill infant monkey. So there's like a turf war going on in India between these dogs and these monkeys. And I'm about to start laughing, and that's really terrible because I love animals. But so what's happening here is the dogs got an infant monkey, and dogs, you know, they see something small and they go, my dogs do. They bring me small rabbits more often than I would like to admit. But they get this infant monkey, and the monkeys had this plot where they have started they've started to kidnap puppies and take them up into the trees and then drop them.
What?
Yeah, it's brutal. It's Merry Christmas, everybody. But I just kind of like, what in the world is going on in India? I mean, good night. 200 puppies have lost their lives in our village, said one local individual. At such height, these puppies don't get food or water, and hence they died naturally many times, but sometimes they fell from a height and died. I don't know. What team are you? Are you team monkey or team puppy?
I'm team puppy.
Team puppy. Okay.
Team puppy. Although I will say, maybe it's not like what it sounds, because they said the monkeys are just dying up in the tree or falling. Originally, it said the monkeys were just dropping them.
Yeah. Well, maybe I exaggerated.
Maybe the
a little
monkeys
bit.
are trying to be friends with the puppies, and they just don't know how to play with the puppy properly.
Always looking for the bright side of things in life.
I think
Jamie.
they said that in the article, didn't they? Like later on, I thought I read that. Maybe I don't know.
I mean, I know that they, I've seen Tarzan that monkeys will adopt other.
I think that's what's
animals.
happening here.
You think they're adopting
They
the puppies?
lost their little baby monkey, and now
Yeah.
they're trying to mother everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
can
right.
get behind that, Jamie.
So it's a. I don't know, Jeremy. What do you think?
I don't know. I think what's weird is there's a lot of weird stuff in India. We don't talk about India enough and all the weird stuff that actually goes on in India. Monkeys are, I think people have a soft spot for monkeys because they're primates and very similar to us in a lot of ways, but they're still wild animals at the end of the day. I'm a puppy lover. I think if it wasn't puppies, like if they had been like, adult dogs that lived a good life, but it's a puppy.
Yeah. So here, I want to read this part of the article because I think Jamie, your theory holds water. Stealing puppies is not a rare act for these monkeys in the area. Monkeys have been known to kidnap the pups and take them to high places where they live to, quote, take care of them. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through this next line without having to take a laugh break. Unfortunately for the dogs, monkeys are terrible owners and do not understand the food and drink requirements of their new pets, who either starve or try to escape, thus falling to the ground.
Oh,
So-
that's so sad.
But I will say too, the other thing, and we kind of talked about this before, puppies here, we've both been to third world countries. There are dogs everywhere, and you see so many dogs, you're almost like, I wish something would put that out of its misery.
Yes.
And so it's not like here where they're like taking puppies from little kids in happy environments. Like a lot of these dogs are just wild and running around and don't have good lives anyway.
Right.
So it makes it a little bit like less like, it's not like they're taking somebody's golden doodle,
They don't have like
and
little
just like,
bows on their ears.
No, some of these are,
Yeah, they've got fleas and ticks.
that
all
does
over
change
them.
the story a little bit, I guess, from a mental perspective, but still, it's just
They've
messed
got
up.
fleas and ticks, and the monkeys are trying to clean them off
I
like monkeys do.
I guess so.
So the point of this story
Is that the monkeys are just trying to do a
is
nice thing.
if the Humane Society is listening,
Spay and neuter your pets.
spay and neuter your pets and do not let monkeys adopt dogs.
Right.
I don't know that that's a big issue here in the States, but I don't know. Maybe at the zoo. Jamie was asking earlier on if this was happening at the zoo.
You did ask that. You asked if this was happening at the zoo. No, what happened was Kara said, monkeys are vicious. They rip people's faces off.
They kill people every year, she said.
They kill people every year.
They
and
do.
then she said they rip people's faces off. And Jamie goes, this is happening at the zoos?
Yeah, it's very common.
It's a really dark world, the zoos. There's a lot of people that get killed they just don't talk about.
That's true.
Yeah.
My wife was in Africa when she was in college, and they went and on a safari type thing or whatever. And she was eating an orange, and she was still in the truck, and everybody else was kind of wanting to get close to the animal. She's kind of afraid of animals, so she stays away. And this monkey, I don't know if it was a baboon or what, but it kept edging closer and closer to the truck, and finally jumped on the hood and bared its teeth because it wanted her orange. So she just chucked the orange and off it went. But she's convinced that she came close to dying that day.
Yeah, I mean, they don't tell you this, but when you have to read the fine print on your zoo membership, there's a little card there at the bottom that says, in case of a monkey attack, the zoo is not liable for
Leave
your
her
face being
alone.
ripped
That's right.
off.
Hey,
Y'all are so mean.
I didn't have full context.
hashtag, rest in peace, Harambe. Okay.
See, it did happen.
It did.
One time.
Once. It actually happened again recently.
But was it like the person got down in the pit?
There's more and more
That's but that's human stupidity, not
Yes.
the animals.
Error.
Yes.
It's not like
I think
that.
it was a child, so I don't know if we'd say stupidity.
Well, it is. Kids are stupid.
I don't think as a kid I would ever got in with the monkeys or the
It
lions
was a
or
little bitty kid. They didn't know better yet.
Didn't they climb the? I don't.
well, the kid survived. The monkey's the one that died.
All right, let's talk about something happier.
Yeah.
It gets a lot better.
Yeah, it gets a lot better. So Italy is a very Catholic nation. That's where the Vatican is, and the Pope, and lots and lots of people who associate with the church. It is also a place where people are officially filing forms to be de-baptized. So there's this article out of the Religion News Service, which if you don't go to religionnews.com, it is not a Christian news service. It is just religion of all sorts. So people who are Buddhist or Muslim or any type of religion at all. It's a news service that covers specifically religious news, and it's great. It really is informative. But in Italy, they have a problem with people who are being de-baptized. So this is, I'm going to read the first couple paragraphs here. Like most of his fellow Italians, Mattia Nanetti, 25, from the northern city of Bologna. I don't know if that's Bologna or Bologna. Well, who knows? Grew up with the teachings and sacraments of the Catholic Church and parochial school. Even his scouting group was Catholic. But in September of 2019, he decided the time had come to leave the church behind. He filled out a form that he had found online, accompanying with it a long letter explaining his reasons, and sent everything to the parish in his hometown. 2 weeks later, a note was put next to his name in the parish baptism register, formalizing his abandonment of the Catholic Church, and Nanetti became one of an increasing, though hard to quantify, number of Italians who had been, quote unquote, de-baptized. So what we're seeing in Italy is something that we're seeing a lot kind of in the church as a whole across the world, which is this wrestling with, what do I believe and why do I believe that thing? They did say, it does say in the article that there are other countries who measure this type of thing, but it's actually a legal piece of paperwork that gets filed in Italy because the church is so prominent there, and it does have legal ramifications that you are forbidden from receiving communion or receiving a Catholic funeral. So it's not a decision that these individuals are taking lightly, but it looks like a lot of it is coming down to where the church has historically stood on certain civil rights that a lot of people wrestle with. Well, I disagree with the church's stance on this, and so I can no longer associate us. And then there's also the, kind of the big question of, well, do I even believe that God exists? And is this all just a cosmic accident and that sort of thing? So what do you guys think of this whole, de-baptism thing? Is that something the church in America should do?
So I guess it's so different here because we don't have such records, I guess. I mean, if somebody decided to leave the faith here, you can just quit coming.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's different. I mean, I guess their culture is so different too because the church has so much power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not like that here, but
Right.
with all the power.
Well, some people would like the church to have that kind of power here.
It's true.
For sure. What about you, April? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I read the article, so I don't know how you get debaptized, but I understand, I guess, what they're trying to say behind it. So they're just kind of fed up with the church. And like you said, I read, some of the things that they were, what was it, like the abortion, and there was
LGBTQ rights, euthanasia, those types of civil rights issues.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Jeremy. We're gonna get into this because deconstruction. It's not a new concept, and if you don't know what the word deconstruction means, it's the idea of taking your faith or your belief apart piece by piece. Deconstructing it and looking at okay, well, why do I believe this, or do I believe this? And it's gotten kind of to be in the zeitgeist a little bit, where there are lots of prominent people in the Christian, the American church that have deconstructed, that have walked away. I mean, people like Kevin Max from DC Talk and John Piper's son, Abraham Piper. Like, these are not just individuals, but the question is, what do you think about this whole deconstruction thing, Jeremy? Is it something that, like, it's okay for a Christian to do, or is this just a fad? Or so let's hear.
What does Jeremy think?
I think it's been going on for a long time, and it's just that it wasn't culturally acceptable. I think that happens a lot of times in things with a lot of different issues and things. I mean, there's been people struggling with things for a while, but then it becomes culturally acceptable, and all of a sudden everybody's doing it. A lot of it is, like you said, the way the church has handled things, and handled certain issues over the years. I mean, we were on the wrong, you can study this. The church was on the wrong side of civil rights for a long time here in our country. And so I think that's a lot of it, is people started to question, like, why is the church viewing things these ways? I mean, that opens the door. Well, then what is God really like? If these are the people supposed to be representing God, and this is the way they're treating people and doing things, and then even, from different perspectives on things like creation and, women's roles. I mean, there's still people that believe that women are supposed to stay at home and take care of the kids and not have opinions and be quiet and all that stuff. And, that's okay if that's what the woman chooses to do, but to be like, that's just what you have to do. Like, and people will use the Bible and stuff to, do that. And obviously we have women in our country and around the world that are just as intelligent, just as smart, just as good leaders as men. And so there's a lot of stuff just with all of that. But as far as deconstruction, I mean, anybody that's listened to me for any amount of time knows that I've gone through different phases of this. When I left Bible college, it was, I thought I was always right and knew everything. And then when I went into seminary, it just kind of rocked my world to some degree, just some of the stuff I was learning. But I had a professor that basically said, everything you learned in Bible college, which is, an educational system and understanding the Bible, you just need to forget it. Like this, we're going on a whole different adventure here. And it really spit me down a path of just questioning things and asking questions. And so, I've gone through several phases of deconstruction with different views on different things. And my wife is here. She can attest to it, how much I've changed a lot of my thinking. And, I always say that, what I think now, I may not think in 10 years, it may change again, there's a lot of central truths that I still hold on to, but then there's a lot of stuff that, I think where we've done the worst part, and we'll open this up for everybody to discuss too, is there is so much, and people are not going to like this, but there is so much gray in the Bible, and we want it black and white. And there's a lot of people who make a living off of black and white because it's job security, but I can't live in that world anymore. I can be true to myself and be honest with myself. So I'm willing to dive into the gray and admit how much of it there is. A lot of it is up for interpretation. A lot of it is, the more I study it, the more I realize the less we actually know about that, which makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I mean, we've said every week on this, Jeremy, what Jeremy thinks. there's just so many things I don't know, and so there's a lot of deconstructing in trying to figure out things and understand things. So no, it's definitely a part of my life. I've gone through different phases of it. The thing that concerns me, and I've talked to people that are going through this, is if you're always deconstructing, it's just chaos. When you deconstruct a building, you're tearing it down with the goal in mind that you're going to reconstruct it. I think where I'm concerned is there's a lot of people deconstructing, but not reconstructing. They're just deconstructing, tearing the whole thing down, partially because they get judged for doing it. They get told they're stupid. People ask really good questions all the time, especially students now are asking really good questions. And this was my experience, even in my early part of faith. When I was asking questions in high school about stuff, I was getting really bad answers. And it was like, well, clearly these people just don't know. And it wasn't, they didn't. There actually were some answers to some of my questions. It's just that the people that were informing me couldn't tell me those answers or answer them in an intelligent enough way that it made sense to me. So anyway, so I think that that's just part of it. I think a lot of people are deconstructing. It's become a trendy thing in some ways. I think some people are doing it because it's trendy. And I think some people are genuinely asking these questions, wanting to find, they don't want to give up on God. They don't want to give up on the church. They just have some questions and they deconstruct. And then when they get judged or told they're stupid or those are bad questions, or, if we give them bad answers, then they just walk away. So they never do the reconstruction process, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So why do you think there is such a pushback from so many pastors about this? And I understand well, are you reconstructing? But there is a fairly large contingent of pastors who just think it is wrong to ask these sorts of questions, to change the fundamentals of what you believe in a lot of ways.
Honest answer?
Yeah.
Job security, number one. Number two, one of the things that people have to understand, I think sometimes, and this is going to sound really terrible of me, so I'll have to ask for forgiveness. A lot of pastors I know do not have great educational backgrounds, and a lot of churches, depending on what main church you belong to or what your denomination is, you don't have to go to college at all. You can just be the guy that stands up and preaches on Sunday morning.
Because you have the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, because you have the Holy Spirit. And if you don't study the Bible, and I'm not saying everybody has to go to seminary and, to understand the Bible, but it is a deep, ancient book, and this is all covered in that What is the Bible class that we do. So I think job security, I think some of it is they don't want to put in the hard work of having to do it. And then the last thing, honestly, is public opinion of other pastors and leaders. I mean, I've seen guys, and you know this, I've asked really good questions, and they just get slaughtered online, especially with social media world. I mean, the reality is, I thought about this. There's probably guys that we know historically that have been prominent men of faith that had these questions, but because there wasn't Twitter and Facebook and people couldn't blast them, it stayed local. It stayed, I joke sometimes when I say like stuff from the stage, I'm like, I hope this stays in the room. Like, obviously it's not going to stay in the room, but I'm also not a big enough name or something like that where I'm going to get blasted on social media.
Right.
But there's a lot of guys I think that would want to say things, but they're scared of what their peers are going to say. And they're afraid of getting, especially in certain denominations. I mean, if you question anything in certain denominations, I'm not going to name names, but all it takes is one text from one tweet from one guy and you're done, So I do think that's a lot of it. And then the other side of it too is, and this is going to be kind of defending them. I have a good friend, we'll have to have him on, Chris Keith, who's one of the top biblical scholars in the world, lives right here in our area, went to North Bullitt High School, which is beyond me, that one of the top biblical scholars in the world, went to North Bullitt High School. But, I asked him one time some of this stuff, and he said, for me, sometimes some people just have a simple faith and that works for them, and that's fine. I think for congregants and people that, and that sounds bad even saying that, but if you're going to be the one teaching and leading and guiding, you have to be willing to dive into some of this stuff, and he said, sometimes I don't, because, he studies stuff that even blows my mind, and even some stuff he's told me that I'm like, I'm just not there yet, and he said one time, sometimes you don't need to drag other people through your mud, and that was stuck with me, that idea. There's some things, some people, they don't need to know how old the world is. They don't need to know what is meant by certain things and obscure texts in the Bible, where to me that's fascinating and I want to know that stuff. For them, they just want to believe that Jesus is who he says he is, and that God's got this under control, And so I think that is part of it for some of them. They just don't want to dive into that world. But to be honest with you, for a lot of people, I think it's job security. They don't want to do the hard work of having to lift that stuff because they're worried for themselves. If I uncover this, like, what is this going to do to my faith?
Sure.
And that's a scary place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jami and April, what are, because we've all done this, and you may not have had a term for it, but we've all had things in our faiths that have changed, that have evolved, things that we had to really struggle with and work through. And maybe you landed back where you did originally, or maybe it was completely different. And you have anything that you're willing to kind of share? Like, yeah, this is a topic that I struggled with, and maybe I'm still struggling with it, that you're willing to share?
I do.
Awesome.
Well, I guess like I really probably like in my mid 20s, I was reading through the Bible and just particularly the Old Testament. And God's like, kill everybody, kill the children, kill the women, take the women. And I was just like, I just really struggled with the idea that there's a God that would do that. So it kind of got into really examining like what is the Bible and how was it written, and it kind of reformed my idea about the Bible as a text versus the Sunday school version of it that I knew. And I feel like I struggled with that for a while. And at one point I was like, I'm not reading that anymore. I put that away. Because the questions are kind of scary. I'm a question person. Like Jeremy will tell you, I ask way too many questions, always have. But that's just me. And I'm always curious. So, but that's scary sometimes when you start getting to those questions that the answers aren't what you were expecting. And I think for a while I like stepped away and was just like, I'm just going to pause. But eventually I feel like I went back to it and kind of just realigned how I saw things. Definitely different than before, but that was something for me that was like a big shift.
Well, and I think too, to back up what she said, we were together in her 20s when she was going through some of this stuff, and I came out of Bible college and the Bible said it, so that settles it. And so like I would just shut down the conversation and be like, we just have to believe this. Like, or I would say, I would say all kinds of like, in hindsight, terrible things.
Oh, it made me so mad.
It would make her so mad. But that was like the reality of the situation. It was like, I was told this is what it has to be. She's questioning it. So I'm going to shut down the conversation or talk over her head so that she just believes what I say versus actually really trying to answer the question. Now it's not like that, because she actually would probably in some ways went through a deconstruction before I did. And, trying to answer some of her questions and having that moment of like, well, that's not really a good answer to what she just asked, really started to get my deconstruction going in some ways and rethinking some of my stuff.
Yeah. And I have a similar experience because my wife, I almost think that she had the benefit of not, I don't want to say being indoctrinated, but the benefit of not having, professors and people that you admire and look up to telling you that, well, this is the way it has to be in order for your faith not to fall apart. That she asked some really good questions before I did. And I think sometimes her questions scared me a little bit. Because, okay, well, I'm in ministry and I'm supposed to be the expert, but she's asking this question that I don't know how to answer adequately. But it's a good question. And so I think that in some ways, our spouses, depending on, whether they've gone to Bible college or if they just have a different perspective of being married to somebody who's a quote unquote, pastor, they see things differently. And so I identify with that a whole lot.
I'll tell you what's crazy. And this is, so two experiences I've had. Number one is I had a professor in college, someone I really respected. And he would teach content in the classroom, and we became friends with him. And we would go out to lunch with him sometimes after class, because I went to a small college. So we'd go out to lunch, and he would almost teach a completely different lesson when it was just us and he wasn't in the classroom. And it got me thinking, like, even then, like, so you're saying this in the classroom, but then when we're pressing you on it at lunch, you're kind of giving us different responses. But again, it was job security for him. He can't say some of the stuff in the classroom that maybe he wanted to say because it's got to fit the curriculum. The other thing is I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of pastors, and I'm not going to name names again, but they're people that especially locally people would know. And I'll have conversations with them about stuff, and they'll be like, yeah. And they'll like, we'll have conversations about like different things. and then I'll listen to their sermons and they'll preach the exact opposite of what we just talked about.
Right.
And I'm not trying to call everybody out, but it is one of those things where like, for me, I was just like, I just can't live in that world. Like, I'm just going to say, this is what I think. This is what I'm working through. And I'll make it clear on Sundays or your podcast, this is my opinion, or this is what I'm working through versus this is a thus saith the Lord type of statement.
Well, and that's the way it should be. Like, the church should be the safe place to ask these hard questions where we can say like, well, I don't know that I agree with this thing, that this interpretation of what the Bible says, or, even say, well, I don't disagree. I disagree with what Paul says here. And that should be, it shouldn't be punishable in the church to be made to feel less than or to ask hard questions. I mean, Jesus asked hard questions and received those hard questions from people, and he responded graciously with them, as opposed to, well, how dare you ask a question like that? You're causing everybody's faith around you to fumble. And I actually think that's something that's really special about Journey.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Is that it is a place where, because when your leader and your leaders are willing to say like, I'm wrestling through this, I don't know, it creates a safe space for other people. And I mean, I've been a part of church. I'm sure everybody at this table has been a part of churches before where it's not safe to ask those hard questions, because especially if you're in a position of leadership, if you're asking those hard questions, that really gives us pause about allowing you to be in a position of leadership. So April, what about you? What are some things, or a single thing that, you've kind of wrestled with?
I would agree or go back to kind of what Jami has said. I remember reading, I want to say it was Sodom and Gomorrah, so I may mix up my verses here, but I remember, I think it was the men that came to the house and wanted to sleep with the guest.
The angels.
Thank you. Yes. And then the father was like, well, here are my virgin daughters. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, you read that and you go, I'm not comfortable with this. And I get it's a different culture and it's a different time. So, there's that story. Hell will be something I always wrestle with.
Sure.
I want to be wrong and say that, oh yeah, there's no hell, but biblically for me, I can't get to that place. You know what I mean? Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but like, I've been doing a lot of research on that. And then, things like, why is the church particularly, heavy on this sin, but not this sin? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think there's always, I don't know, something you're learning or trying to learn, but that's again, what I love about this church. Even us on staff, not all of us agree with everything, but we can talk about it. And I love that. So
yeah, I mean, it's a very safe place to be able to say like, I don't know what I think about this here. And you're right. There are things that as staff, and we're not talking, just like socially, we're talking theologically, that we find ourselves in different places, and that's okay. And I actually think that that's what the church should look like.
Me too.
That it shouldn't be this, homogenous church of on the essentials, obviously. And that's always a kind of a slippery slope, because everything ends up becoming essential. Right. But comes back to, well, who do you say Jesus is? And I mean, do you believe that Jesus is our salvation? I think that's kind of the key question there. Right. Everything else is, kind of getting into the details.
Right.
Well, I think you say this too. I mean, early on in the church, when people would give quote unquote sermons, the people in the audience got a chance to respond to what they thought about it.
Yeah.
And then the Catholic Church come along and kind of nix that. And so historically we've gotten away from that. But I've always thought that'd be interesting to like preach. And then it's a little scary too. Just have like, and not like respond with how they're going to go live their life. I mean, like they would respond to what you said.
Right.
And, that was, and say like what they think about what you just said. And I was like, that's actually very intriguing to me. You know?
Yeah. It's, and when you think about that, we have 300 people in the room at the same time. But when you think about the fact that a church maybe had 20 people in it, and it makes a little bit more sense of how that would work. But even as it starts to get a little bit bigger, I do kind of, might be a weird experiment to try. Like, hey, let's see if you can stump Jeremy in real time.
Yeah, well, they could. I mean, they definitely
We've tried to, we've talked about this before. So my background's education. And so I used to be like, well, lecture is the worst form of education. And like, if you think about in teaching and in learning, the best times of learning are when you're asking questions that are like genuine and that when you're exploring it for yourself. And that's how you really learn and grow. And so we talked about doing different things before. Like at one point we had tables and everybody was not in rows and it was like, come sit at this table. And we just experimented with some different things. Now, logistically, that would be tricky, but
sure.
I think that if you ever had somebody in charge that was saying not to ask questions, that would raise some red flags to me.
You talk about that, like the whole, would you stump Jeremy? And it would be intriguing because it's not that I think I'm the smartest person, but what would be honest about it, I think this is what happened in the What is the Bible class, is they ask questions thinking not that they were going to stump me, but that I wouldn't have an answer. What they didn't realize is those are the exact same questions I'd been wrestling with.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And so I had answers and responses, not because I'm so smart, but because, I've already thought about that. Like that's already something on my radar of like, well, what do you do about that? You know, and I think that's one of those intriguing things of like, I think a lot of people are scared of that, or I'm like, man, that'd be awesome just to like have that conversation.
Heck yeah. Yeah. The thing for me was, and I went through, I guess I would call it a deconstruction. It was just in 2017. I was working as a minister at a church, and it was a rough time in my life at that point. And it was like a light switch went off, and it was all of a sudden like I had to choose to believe in God at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it was not that I didn't believe, but it had to be an active choice. And the thing was for me, it was just the whole science and faith thing. The church kind of not historically, but within relative recent American history, the church has become kind of fearful of science, that it will tear down, what we believe. And I'm just somebody that I value science, and I can't look at hard empirical data and say, nope, I'm going to choose to ignore this. And so really wrestling with the origins of where we are. And, and like Jeremy, I think it's really wise to say, well, I might not be here in 10 years or 5 years, but this is where I'm at now. And I kind of landed at a place where it was like, yeah, this is where I'm at. And I don't think it really matters. And
both sides of that conversation, you talked about earlier, why you think guys are scared to have those conversations. It came down to peer understanding.
Yes.
So, I mean, there was a period of time where if you're a pastor and you talk anything about believing in evolution, you're done.
Yeah.
And there's a time, and some places still a time in the scientific world where if you talk about any type of like divine intervention or divine intelligence, like you're done.
Yes.
And now we have some guys that are saying, no, those conversations aren't as far apart as you actually think. Now they're few and far between because of still that peer kind of review type thing. But there's a lot of guys now having that conversation, and it's gaining a lot more traction, that they're not as far apart as you think. And there's some guys that just don't care anymore. They're not scared to have those conversations.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to not care about. I mean, obviously, it's good to have people who challenge you and say like, well, hey, why do you think that? But not in a way of like, I don't think you should be asking those questions, but to dialogue with. I mean, I just listened to an interview with Francis Collins.
I was going to talk about him.
Yeah, and he's the guy that mapped the Human Genome Project. He's the head. He's the outgoing head of the National Institute of Health here in the United States, and he is a incredible scientific mind who also happens to be a Christian.
Yep.
And he does not see any disconnect whatsoever between what he believes on a scientific level, according to hard data, and what he believes on a faith level. And one of the questions that he was asked in this interview was, you're retiring. That's kind of concerning because are there other individuals like you waiting in the wings in the scientific community? And he was like, more than you know.
Yeah.
More than you might think that everybody in the scientific community is atheist and doesn't believe in God or the spiritual side of life. But there are a lot of us. And more we are seeing those people who aren't afraid to share that.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that, I think there are more and more Christian leaders who are willing to say, yeah, I believe in evolution. And what's actually really interesting, and I read this in, I can't remember what book, I think it was Christian Mazdume's book, Jesus and John Wayne. The big thing is the Scopes monkey trial. And that's where the whole evolution thing came from. And what she talks about in that book is really interesting because Darwinism was the big fight there. And if you're not sure what that whole thing is, there's a great play in Here at the Wind. You can read that, watch that. But Christians were against Darwinism, and thus they were also against the idea of capitalism, because capitalism was a Darwinistic form of economics of, well, whatever the strongest, business will win out. And so it's actually really interesting to watch how things flip and evolve. And I think we're seeing a period of time there where we're starting to see more and more Christian leaders who are willing to say, like, no, I'm not sure where I am on this.
Well, and it's not new. I think that, when I was thinking about like heresy and like heretics, like a lot of the stuff that we consider normal now, 500 years ago, guys died because they were considered heretics. But now we just consider it normal. And like when I was thinking about that, like, heresy and like speaking and challenging these things, like all it means is you're going against the dogma of the day. And like when we use the word dogma, it's always a negative connotation.
Right.
And so it's like, we think of people, like I've already registered that some people will probably write me off as a heretic at some point in time for something I believe. And I'm like, well, if that means going against the dogma, yeah, sure. I think that, some of the stuff, and not any of my thoughts are original. I think that's the other thing. And that's why it's so helpful is like when I started questioning a lot of this stuff, to realize how many people were going through that and how many books were written out there about it and all that. And it was very helpful to know that I'm not the only one having those conversations. And when I talked to, Chris was one of them, but several scholars I've been able to talk to briefly, but him majority of the time, like some of the stuff that I would say or challenge locally because of where we are, he's like, yeah, people just don't, that's not a big deal anywhere else. Like, it's just not. And so it's like, that was like a eye-opening moment for me, as well as a lot of it is just where we are located.
Yeah. Like geographically.
Yeah. Geographically.
Yeah. That's really a good point. I something that brings me, I don't know, I guess it's comfort in asking these hard questions, and is that I see people like Chris or like Francis Collins, and they are so much smarter than I ever will be. And they have asked, I'm sure, way harder questions than I will ever even consider. And yet they still come out the other side and they're like, yeah, I still have my faith. And I just find comfort in that. And I don't maybe that's a weird way of looking at it, but I don't know. It feels
Chris, I probably should ask permission to tell the story. He talks about, if you know Chris Keith, and some people do, he's just super brilliant, and he's running in circles like I just can't even imagine running in. And not just running in those circles, like he's one of the top dogs in a lot of those circles. And he talked about like all these questions one time, and he said, but then I go to church and I sing How Great Thou Art, and I just believe it. And it was just like that thing of like, he's so smart, but then there's just this thing that keeps bringing him back to just, and it was just a really interesting point he made.
Yeah. So. Well, anybody have any final thoughts or encouragement words or demands of April?
Wear the shirt.
That's right.
Y'all are not right.
You have to wear it.
I'll pray about it.
Well, we're going to pray about it too. We're going to, it's like when a team prays, Jesus, please help us win this game. And the other team prays, Jesus, please help us win this game.
Yeah.
Jesus is on our side.
No, he's on my side.
He really is.
No.
All right.
Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Ooh.
And that's a Bible verse.
That is.
I think you're taking it out of context.
No.
Pretty sure he said when you say yes to something, you do it.
In fact, in the scenario, it was that Peter and John had been playing a game, and Peter was like, I'm not wearing it. I told him I told him I would, but I'm not wearing it. And Jesus was like,
okay,
but your yes be yes and your no be no, Peter.
That's the Rusty Wilson version?
Yes.
No, that's the Greek version. Prove us wrong.
Yeah. Go translate. Well, that is it for our show. We are so grateful for you, and we hope that you had a wonderful Christmas. We hope that you have a wonderful New Year.
And that your puppy is safe from monkeys. Keep your puppy, if you got a puppy, keep it away from monkeys.
But puppies haven't you heard the commercials? I am not a gift. I am a commitment.
All right. Keep your commitments away from the monkeys.
And with that, we're going to end the show. Thank you so much. We will see you or talk to you next year.